guys, welcome back here to the Sword of Mercury. Today I'm going to be explaining the difference between exercise and exorcise, or rather the similarity in it, and I'm going to be essentially explaining Gym 3.0. So, let's talk about exorcise. Exorcise, if you don't know, is a practice in which the church used to use to pull malevolent spirits or energy out of people, which refers to like spirits or demons or whatever lower energy in the cosmos that essentially impedes mankind and mankind's mentality or their connection to higher spiritual forces. In any case, we're going to be talking about how that term is essentially the same as exercise and why exercise is so important. And maybe we'll start off by just kind of talking about that concept. Exercise and exercise have one thing in common at the root, and that is the concept of detoxification or purification. And we can see here blood purification, which is something that actually gets done when you go to the gym and you exercise. You purify the bloodstream because you are circulating the blood at a higher rate. You're speeding up blood circulation and you're stimulating the blood flow. So, by drinking water, that acts as water is like the most natural and basic form of a detoxification substance on the planet, and that all life forms use. So, essentially what's happening, use our tappy marker here. We're going to tap on the tea mug in a bit. But, essentially what happens is your breath acts as the force for this. So when you're breathing heavy in the gym and you're undergoing heavy respiration because you're just finished a set or you're, in the middle of your workout or whatever, essentially you're breathing heavy, that's the force. And that force generates higher fire in the system. And that fire essentially comes out in the form of heat being generated around the body, which you might call aura or whatever, but you can feel it because the body gets hot, starts perspirating, it starts expelling water. And that's why it's important to hydrate during your exercise, because you're expelling water, but not just water, you're expelling toxins from the body through perspiration. The blood is undergoing purification. And, you can even see here the process, all the cells and the things associated with the cells or anything in the bloodstream, any drugs, alcohol, whatever, any substances that are in the blood that are no longer needed will be filtered out. And it allows for the revitalization of the body, producing new blood cells and all these different things, breaking down your muscles and rebuilding them stronger, making little micro tears in the muscles, building them back up. This is relating to the element of earth. So we can see how these really all function together. Wind acts as the driving force through respiration. Fire is what gets increased by the production of the wind. Water is what purifies the blood system through drinking water and through sweating and perspiration. And then your muscle breakdown and rebuilding afterwards is essentially related to earth. So all of these are really important to understand if you want to overcome plateaus, if you want to learn or understand rather how to become more formidable in your exercise. So we're really talking about the concept today, and if this interests you, stick around to the end because you're going to want to hear all of this. The concept of ascending to a higher level of activity or a higher level or pinnacle of ability based off willpower alone and strength alone, without any outside aid, no outside help from anything in the environment, just willpower alone. And essentially that's why I crossed this out over here. BS supplements. You don't need supplements to get you to that higher level. I'm gonna tell you how. So, as I've talked about, uh, this phrase, saying exercise, or word exercise, essentially pertains to the act of detoxifying the body. So, if you think about exercise under that concept, or through that concept, you see not only how all this plays into this cycle of renewing the body's energy and renewing the system and revitalizing the system and recirculating the system, but also how it plays into the overall benefit of strengthening your resolve, strengthening your willpower, and ascending to a higher state of strength with nothing but willpower alone. The reason why I say that if you're not like a professional athlete or something, you don't need supplements, because if you are in the gym because you want to develop yourself, if you want to reach a higher level of personal development for yourself, and again, this is just my opinion, I'm just giving you guys ideas and insight from my experience here. If you want to reach a higher state of strength or willpower with your power alone, you don't need these, because the whole point of exercise is that you're filtering the system, so you're purifying the system. This stuff will make your system work harder. Sure, you might be able to bang out a few extra reps or whatever temporarily based on you taking that substance or that supplement or whatever, but essentially you are, one, relying on that substance, and two, it's impeding your body's ability to actually detoxify the system and remove energy that is blocked, because you are putting more stuff into your system for it to then filter out. So you're actually making your body work harder. And just remember, if you're training to almost connect with that instinct that is within you to reach a higher pinnacle, just as they would have done in old times. Remember that in the oldest times, the time of cavemen and whatnot, they didn't have BS supplements, and they didn't have all these essentially bells and whistles or external aspects to increase their performance. They had to do it with strength and willpower alone, and with food and whatever they caught. So, if you want to strengthen your willpower and strengthen your resolve and your ability to do battle, I guarantee you will exceed the limit in which, or the pinnacle in which you have gone to using that stuff. And the reason why is because you are competing now on fair ground with yourself. You are competing with yourself from a level of not relying on anything, and you will then have a deeper understanding of yourself and the aspects associated with yourself. Why? Because you understand that you are being driven by nothing but your inner fire, your inner will. And that's why, the concept of self-development or personal development comes into play so much in the gym, because fire is associated with the ego and the shadow. You're reforming your mentality when you're in there through physical means, and that's exercise, and exorcise coming into play. Exercise is exorcism on the physical level. Exorcise is exercise on the spiritual level. So they're both the same thing, and when you understand that, you start to look at the concept differently. You start to understand that this is really a detoxification process in which the body is going through a method or modality of purification and spiritual development also, as well as personal development. So you don't need this stuff because it puts your body under more strain, which actually in the long run prevents you from getting to a higher pinnacle. And when you stop taking this stuff, or when you don't have it with you one day, or whatever, that's not true. It's just in your mind. You've created a groove in your mind, which is as associated with those supplements with performance, which is not true. Those don't equal performance. Your willpower and your ability to draw that out is what correlates to performance. So, and I'm not saying that these are not useful. Again, if you're at the pinnacle of your genetic potential in a competitive scene or a sport or form of competition, or maybe that slightest edge for like a split second will give you the edge over your opponent or whatever, or the benefits of creatine preventing TBI or some other factor which is underlying and not really looked at will assist you, then that's a different story, but that typically occurs in competition. But if you're going to the gym to benefit yourself, to work on your aesthetic, your health, your mentality, personal development of any kind, and you're competing against yourself, then you don't need that, because you want to be competing on fair ground with yourself, and those are not going to assist you in getting to a higher pinnacle or ascending to a higher limit in the long run. They're going to actually, in fact, limit you from reaching that pinnacle, because when you're without it, like cycling off your pre-workout or whatever, then you'll feel weak and you'll feel that you don't have that strength or that drive or that amount of energy that you normally have. And yeah, there's a physical act going on there because you don't have caffeine or as much caffeine in your system, but that's not really it. It's that you've become dependent on something on a mental level, and because you have become dependent on that on a mental level, it's translated into the physical. If you take pre-workout, like I don't know, let's say once a month or something like that, it's not going to affect you. Why? Because you haven't become dependent on taking it for a while or whatever. Me, I don't take any of this stuff when I'm not like competing for a professional sport or whatever. Back when I was wanting to compete for a professional sport, or I was planning on competing in a professional sport like boxing, I took creatine. Why? Because it helps prevent TBI and it helps recovery. But again, if you're competing against yourself, those factors don't apply. If you're competing against someone else, or you have factors like bodily recovery based on impact or whatever that you're going to be sustaining for a period of time, then that's different. However, if you're competing against yourself and you're seeking to advance yourself with willpower and your strength alone, then you don't need these. And as soon as I stopped competing stopped my journey to compete in a professional sport, I stopped taking creatine and all these supplements that I was taking, and it really was only creatine. And I stopped taking it because I realized that if I'm not competing, I don't need to rely on a substance externally to get me to that pinnacle. Because if I'm competing against myself, I want to be competing on fair playing field. So not only does it make it more challenging, but it also makes it more fun because you know you're competing against yourself in the purest state. And not only that, your body will appreciate it more. You'll start to create a deeper connection with the self because you know that every productive step you got to, or every pinnacle that you have achieved, you got to with nothing but your own strength alone. No supplement was responsible for it. No magical pill or cure or whatever was responsible for getting you to that next level or over a plateau. You did it with your own strength alone, and that's how it should be. So that's why I say it's important to understand that essentially water is all you really need. And now that you guys have watched like this far into the video, I'll give you guys the tips. If you guys have watched this far, I know that you're dedicated, and I know that you're on the journey of personal development. So I'll give you that tip, which I was going to give you in this video. So here's the tip right here. The tip is tea or hot tea. I know it seems very, oh yeah, that's not any big like revelation, but what I do, this is what I do when I go to the gym, and I'm not saying you have to do this or whatever. I'm saying that this is what I do. If you find that this might work for you, then you can also use it, and I'll tell you why I do this. Essentially what I do when I go in the gym and I want to challenge myself, I want to push myself to that higher level in which I'm, I guess, at a state where I need to ascend, or want to see how far I can take my mentality in overcoming an obstacle or a block or ascending to a higher level, as I say. Is what I do is I bring hot tea with me instead of water, and I only drink hot tea during the exercise. And not only is that generally the opposite of what your body is asking for during that time, and I don't mean opposite in a sense where it doesn't want it, but it's less comfortable for you to drink than cold or refreshing water. But it's somewhat, I would say, more beneficial in some ways, and that's because if you understand what is going on here, you can apply the aspects that associate with that. So, again, we talked about exercise purifying the body and the spirit, but essentially what is happening is, and again, I said this before, you're speeding up the blood circulation and increasing the blood flow, and generally when you do that you're producing heat around the body, which we've talked about also. That's a perspiration and the production of fire involved in that, and the heat coming off your body, which is why typically you want something cold to drink to cool down during the workout. But when you drink something hot, or when you have hot tea and you drink hot tea, what that does is it bumps up the level of detoxification going on through the system. Especially I'm talking about like herbal tea, or so like green tea or something like that. So essentially what goes on is you speed up that blood circulation, and that blood flow by having something that is hot, because it warms you up from the inside, and it increases the detoxification rate of the body. But not only that, think of the training that people do in cold temperatures, such as cold showers or stuff like that. That's meant to not only benefit you on a physical level by, doing things like, treating things like inflammation, or mental aspects like depression or whatever, or helping to sharpen your focus, or whatever the aspect is. But it also is aligned with the aspect of getting your body into a state of adaptation and overcoming the barrier, the mental barrier which is there, such as being in the cold and being able to relax in the cold and not shivering, but just breathing and relaxing and becoming comfortable in where the body is normally uncomfortable. And when you do that by drinking hot tea, it's the same thing as being in the cold, because your body wants something to cool it down in this case, and if you give it something hot, then it relaxes eventually, gets into a state of relaxation, where the energy has reached a state in which the fire is going, it's burning, the willpower is going, and you are running on nothing but pure willpower and strength alone. So Again, you don't need any supplements. You only need water or perhaps something like tea, and both of those things are things that are aiding the detoxification process instead of these things which put more stress on your system. And again, by all means, take from whatever you feel is helpful for you from this video, but this is my mentality on these things, that if you want to reach a level of strength and ascend past your own limits that mark where you are currently at, then you want to compete on a fair playing field, and you want to push yourself to those limits by competing with nothing but your willpower alone. So that is essentially the information I have for you today. And again, this is the Sword of Mercury, brought to you by the Prince of Mercury, the Prince of all Mercurians. And maybe one day I'll explain what that means, but to give you a hint, it is something related to everything I've just talked about here regarding building yourself off willpower and strength alone. And this is all important because you'll know that when you achieve that higher limit and you have transcended beyond those limits and you have ascended to a higher level, that you did it by yourself and that nothing besides your own willpower was responsible for your growth and your character aspect, I should say, of achieving this new level. Yeah, I don't know how many more ways I can say it than just going to a new limit or achieving a new level. But essentially, that's the overall concept here. That when you do that, when you ascend to that higher level, you are doing it by yourself, and you should be very proud that you are able to do that, because a lot of people always look for the crutches, easy way, but when you choose a hard path on purpose, that is what truly makes you more formidable in battle. So again, I label this Gym 3.0 because I would consider Gym 1.0 training without any, training like the old-fashioned way with like nothing but just whatever you're lifting. I would say Gym 2.0 is, all the bells and whistles we have here in the 21st century, and Gym 3.0 being using all of those factors encompassed in both more consciously and effectively by understanding the process and increasing that detoxification process and combining that with understanding the spiritual elements associated with exercise, which is detoxification, purification, and exorcism, which is again just relieving the body of negative energy and becoming one with the state of true mentality of the self and reforming your ego and your shadow into the self in which you are aiming to achieve, which is essentially almost what all of us do while going to the gym or exercising or competing in a sport. We're not competing against anybody but ourselves. We're not trying to ascend past anything but our own limits, and we're seeking to do that to achieve a is mentality, which is also related to strength, I should say. Whether that is aesthetics, physical strength, mental strength. You get the idea. I'm running out of things to say here. That essentially means I think that we're at the end of the video here. But you get what I'm saying, right? I know you do, because you've watched this far into the video, which means that you're on this journey of self-development, or personal development, or self-expression, and both of those go together. But when you understand this, you know that it's about doing battle with your own strength alone and competing against yourself on even playing field. And when you do that, you will always ascend to higher limits, because you are able to compete against yourself on that field, which is well balanced and governed by nothing but your willpower. So, or inner fire, which again is the element which relates to the ego and the shadow fire. So, that should be almost self-explanatory of all of this. So, again, a lot of what I talk about here on this channel is a little bit in-depth, especially for ASMR and me lulling you off to sleep. But remember that all of this is important, and you should be very, very proud, not only that you've watched this far into the video and absorbed all this information, but also that you have achieved these pinnacles with nothing but your own strength. Because trust me, that is very different from feeling that you reached a pinnacle by relying on a substance, or relying on some outside factor, or aspect of the environment which help you get to that state, and you didn't do it completely by yourself. Because when you do it completely by yourself, I guess the 21st century saying is it hits different. So, but that is essentially the information I have for you today about exercise, Gym 3.0, and the nature of the energy cycle that is going on within the body during exercise, as well as the detoxification taking place, and the lack of necessity for supplements that are very common use, especially around young guys like me in the 21st century. Like to take this supplement, that supplement, or whatever. With the concept being that it's going to get you to better physique or whatever you're trying to achieve, but it's not. The only thing you need to rely on is your own strength. And when you realize that, you can go further than you ever thought possible. You realize that the only thing that stands between you and every goal that you set for yourself is you. And there is no limit to how much you lift or how far you can go. Everything that you need, you already have. So, again, this is the information I have for you right here on the Sword of Mercury. Do a little bit more tapping. This is the information I have for you here on the Sword of Mercury. Again, brought to you by the Prince of Mercury. And I ask that you can help support the channel by liking and subscribing if you can, because it does help support the channel and all the aspects associated with it, such as this information that I feel is important enough to bring to you guys. And I really want to be able to do this for a career, if I'm being honest, because I feel that this information is important, and I just want to assist other people in having all the tools to benefit their own journey that I had to learn just by going along in my journey. So nothing makes me feel more in a state of purpose than giving you guys this information and watching or being on this journey with you guys as we all ascend to a higher level and do it not with nothing but our strength and willpower alone. So, again, this is the Sword of Mercury. And if you want to see a longer form content, I recommend that you check out my channel Moonstruck, which encompasses a lot of similar topics to this in a longer form content, almost podcast form. So I recommend that you check that out if you're interested in that. Remember to comment, like, subscribe. I'll see you next time right here on the Sword of Mercury.